Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hi, I'm Rose Minahan, and I'm a founding host of Talk Cosmos. We have leading edge conversations awakening your authentic self for soul growth. And if I look a little different on the screen, well, it's been a different kind of morning. And the times right now, today is, just to log us in into reality of time and space, happens to be Sunday, February 6th, here in this USA nation that we live in, that I live in. Because other nations, other places have other times and dates. Yes, we know this. And we have today Planet Buzz, and we have our panel discussion as we do every month with my wonderful members. And we're talking about the two personal planets, Venus and Mars, one on either side of our planet Earth. And as one of my members, Lesley, brought up a great title, I'll give credit where credit's due, Sustaining Inner Discipline. Oh my gosh, has that rung true? We have a little pre-talk, and then we have a week to kind of hibernate and digest and percolate, right? Which life is. I mean, all the planets are direct now, thank goodness. And they're rushing back and forth trying to figure life out. And that's what this is about for me at this moment, because we have the cosmic lovers approaching each other very close, that they will be for 5 weeks, and at most 1 degree orb within and maybe without, and then a couple of days at 2 degrees. It's most incredible. And Harmonia was their child. Well, one thing led to the other, and as it does always, which we will talk about, because we have the values of Venus with the choices of Mars. And it's really that conversation as they unite once again, these cosmic lovers. So I was up for one reason or another early before sunbreak and having a conversation with another friend, decided to look for the stars. She'd seen Algol. Well, that wasn't visible, but there was Venus shining bright in the morning sky, daybreak before. And so I decided, okay, let's talk. Well, you know, what does it talk? It's hard to know. But I wrote, because that's part of my path these days, and that's we'll get into. And so then I wrote a poem, which I do, and I decided I'm going to read it. Alas, harmony, how you reign amidst twin towers between tranquil twilight, Venus emboldened, Mars leaping close, her gates breaking, their keyholes lost. Never fear, tells harmony, paths forged, washed, bring shores of crashing waves, battered rock, thrusting like antlers interlocked. New portals awaken, renewing keysmiths' training, their cosmic lover light lasting, rising high into the heavens, leading daybreak, and scouted by Saturn's rings of time. See here, whispers the warrior's light, beyond old stories, guarding boundaries. Envision your secret handshake. You aspire making life your terms in harmony. Mercury and Pluto conspire to speak. Build not walls using old stones, but cobble paths. Build benches. Make burdens shared. Our guardian rises, joining the chariot's destiny, bringing a day renewed, bright. Here are the birds remembering Venus near Mars shining bright, singing songs reminding memories of joyous harmony's treasured sight. So I ended it with, thank you, Light's Might. Okay, it's time for Planet Buzz.
focusing on planetary ecliptic orbital cycles and planetary pairs called synodic cycles connecting the planets at the same degree that begin our relationship. These are the members of Planet Buzz.
I'm Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Lesley Francis, author of the 2019 and 2020 Llewellyn Sun Sign books, a practicing professional astrologer intuitive, a lecturer, and host of my own podcast, Coloring Outside the Box. My lifelong search to understand what it is to be human led me to develop my own approach to astrology called purpose-centered astrology. I passionately seek to support people in their greatest act of creativity, living life, through consultations and webinars. Creator of star cards, I love talking and making people laugh.
And I'm Dr. Laura Tad. I have a PhD in human science and work as a spiritually oriented psychological astrologer with people around the world. I teach and lecture on astrology both in person and remotely. I have a blog. I have written for the Mountain Astrologer, Celestial Vibes, and Tarot.com. Additionally, I am the educational coordinator for Live Life Resources, an educational nonprofit specializing in resiliency training, education, and research.
And as the ancient Hermetic code reveals,
as below, so above. As above, so below.
Yay, yay, yay. And that happened to be this morning. You know, a great, that's not a secret, but if you have Astro Gold on your phone, you can go zip and see immediately where the stars are at that moment and the planets. So it was interesting. It had Sun and Saturn just below the ascendant, and Mercury and Pluto in the 12th, and then in the 11th, the two cosmic lovers with Vesta. So there you go. Well, good morning and hello and good afternoon.
Hi.
It's so great to see you both again. It truly is. You know, it's values into action, isn't it? And how will we do it? That's the whole thing. You know, whether we talk against the book banning or whether we talk about where it is in our chart. Yes, Lesley.
Nathan would like you to unplug your headphones. Your sound is muffled.
Oh, thank you.
Dear, well, that's life. Is that better?
It sounds better, but
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So it was muffled. My whole poem was muffled in the water, sloshing around, huh? Oh, well.
another Mercury retrograde problem, even though it's not retrograde anymore.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's too bad. Yeah, I had real difficulty with my computer. It's I'm going to have to purchase something to make the connections better, I guess. But I found something this morning that I'll share to begin. I was outside again at 6 o'clock in the morning, scouting around for Venus, which I did see. And I saw this little thing on the ground. I thought, oh, I'll be a good person and pick it up and throw it away. And I looked at it. It's a leaf. See that tiny little leaf?
Wow.
It's all curled up, which amazingly is like the spiral of life that begins. And here it is ending. It's like, oh my goodness. So I thought, well, I'm not a technical physicist, but I do like the right question, like how is the universe happening? So I think it ends and begins with a spiral. That's what I say. So
How true.
yeah, so yes, about our values in action. You know, I guess I'll introduce my own quest at this moment, because really having these two personal planets in Capricorn that have been merging together since, well, technically they are exact on the 16th at the full moon, just 2 hours before the full moon of February. And then they go exact at the middle of Capricorn, and then they cardinal sign, and then they go to 0 degrees Aquarius on the 6th of March, just a couple of days after the new moon. But then it's extended. It's extended from, I think, the 7th, that's tomorrow, of February, all the way to the 18th or something of March. That's like 5.5 weeks. Long time for these two guys, or gal and guy, however you want to say it, two gals, whatever, however we talk about these energies, because one receives, I think, and one gives choices. One has values. Everybody's talking about how do you call the old feminine and masculine? Well, what are they doing? That's what I say. One is receiving and calculating their values and purpose and meaningfulness, and the other one saying, hey, let's do it.
But I think that part of the challenge we face in describing different kinds of energy is we genderize them when we don't need to genderize them at all, because they, as you said, one is receptive and the other is active.
Yeah,
and
good.
And
Sorry about that, Lesley.
Well, no. My brain is gapping out. I'm having my own Capricorn, Venus, Mars Capricorn thing going on with
like my
tooth,
computer's doing.
with my tooth. So it's like, and I'm about to get my tooth restructured so I can sustain my life.
That's very Capricorn.
And it's interesting because, I know we don't generally talk about the personal stuff till towards the end, but that conjunction, the first one, is right on my 6th house cusp. So, which of course can be health, but anyway,
good.
Actually, I do wish to give credit. I appreciate you giving me credit in the introduction, but it was actually Laura that talked about sustaining inner discipline.
Well, then it's three ways here, and that's good. I'm glad with going with the personal first, because I truly, by reading my poem, I'm sorry you couldn't hear it? Was that it?
No, we could. It was sort of muffled, and so the sound's better now. So it was able to be heard. It's just sort of under water.
It wasn't mute. You weren't mute.
Oh, rats. Well, at any rate, I think the point that regardless of the poem, it is that,
and a lovely poem it was.
Yeah, but it was that decision for me to start recreating. I've always written poetry, and for my own benefit, to understand what I don't understand, in the world, because somehow it seems a lot more sensible than it does in tidy little sentences that everybody else is thinking, because otherwise I would understand it, right? But I don't understand it, so I make my own poetry. And this class I'm taking is the Artist Way, which has been around since the 70s and wanted to do for the last 40 years. And there's this wonderful class that is available with a woman named Mary Gail King in California. And so, you have these goals. And so I've been writing my pages every morning to flesh out the brain cells, and then I've thought, well, let's do something on top of that, because I know that one of the creative ideas is you flesh the brain out and then you create from that. You get all that chaos out and you kind of reconstruct it. So anyway, I've been writing poetry. But isn't that really these planets talking already?
Well, I think that's the key to sustaining an inner discipline, is having a focus and finding out, because we're always shocked that what we value changes in life. That what we thought was important when we were 22 is no longer important to us. And, we've talked about Venus and Mars, desire versus choosing what in a sense feels right to us, what is a reflection of our inner self, and finding ways to express it outwardly. But it's hard to do that. And especially after the last couple of years, when everybody feels like everything has changed so dramatically. I was having a conversation over the weekend and saying to someone, that my brain just gapped out.
No, it's okay
I
because
just lost what I was going to say.
it,
Well, I was actually talking to a person who's a Cancer and saying, and this is true for everybody, that the only security that you have in life is within. And so if you're talking about the polarity between Capricorn and Cancer, trying to find a way to sustain that inner discipline has to do with going within.
thank you, Lesley, and
I don't know
hope
if
you
that
can
made
hear
any
me.
sense at all.
No,
but...
it does. No. We have to remember right now, both Jupiter and Neptune are in Pisces. This is not just one axine here. This isn't just the two inner the cosmic lovers trying to recalibrate our lives through Capricorn, deconditioning, which is really what you're saying. But we have these other play actors on the screen of life. Any rate, getting back to your thought and to the personal, it's in my fourth house. So when you talk about these two polarities, and in astrology for everybody, there are not just the 12 signs, but 6 polarities. One has a partner, they teeter-totter, and together they make the board of life. Yeah, their axis. So yes, that's very important. The inner discipline really relates very closely with mine.
And it's interesting trying to define what inner discipline is. I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of an emotional relationship people have with the word discipline, right? So really it's creating an appropriate framework and focus, because you can't that's so much a part of self-discipline anyways. It's not just the act of doing, it's the act of creating, which is also very much connected. So that's the Venus Mars, the creating and the doing, because creativity is not the actual act of putting it. It begins far before that. Long before that, right?
Yes, and I think really important is the fact that we again have this Piscean energy that's so strong, with Jupiter in its quick path through Pisces, which it did a little bit last year, and it will at the end of the year again after it has its time in Aries. But it's Pisces right now, imagination at its best, along with Neptune when it actually conjuncts on April 12th. Of course, these vibrations are strong. So I think, in other words, this inner discipline is allowing ourselves to enter the unknown. Because in the past, Capricorn would always say, I need goals. They need to be in the real world. I can touch, feel, and see. Well, that's true. Like, for instance, I have, for my own example, in my fourth house of inner self, I'm working with these pages that Julia Cameron with The Artist Way says you do first thing in the morning, 3 pages. They don't have to be big pages. Mine happen to be big pages, but they can be little tiny pages. They can be 3 by 7. My teacher says. But I decide, well, if I'm going to say something and get it out, let's get it out. So I got a great big book, and besides, it was empty and needed to be filled. So, but it's that quest of, it's a different time with Capricorn. So I think it's a good point that you're bringing up.
Well, Pisces is the world of all possibilities. And so what do we draw? So I think that as much as again, my, so
okay, Laura can jump in.
It's important not to try to put the cart before the horse. So recognizing that you're going to get a lot of stuff buzzing around from, and maybe, this would be a time for very powerful meditation. Now, everybody has their own form of meditation. You could be meditating while you're washing the dishes. It has more to do with getting into that brainwave pattern. So, a lot of stuff is going to flood in. So the conjunction first in Capricorn and then in Aquarius, as you begin to, with it in Capricorn, there is that, finding an appropriate foundation. and rebuilding one, or with Pluto there too, it can often be, beginning what appears to be beginning from beginning from ground zero, and moving up, not realizing that you have all of the life experience that you've had with what that has contributed to you.
It's kind of, I think, a wait and see prospect. We can deliberate and go a little bit trusting what's been in the past. But to move forward, we just got to get on that raft and move it.
Well, no, I don't mean looking at the past. I mean recognizing what you have built within, which has to do with sustaining inner discipline. Because if you're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because sometimes we have a tendency to go, it's not perpetuating the past, it's drawing strength from what you've accomplished, knowing that going forward you can rearrange, reconfigure, whatever your life. And then when that conjunction takes place in Aquarius, you're really ready for more change.
Yeah, it's sort of having that solid foundation, right? I mean, if you think about any sort of structure, any building, right? If you don't have a solid foundation, it doesn't matter how creative and fun and exciting your design is, or how innovative the architecture is. If the foundation isn't solid, it's not going to stand up for any length of time.
Yeah, it's just like in my poem, I was saying, cobble a path. Well, the ground has to be flat for the stones to be embedded. So yeah, a foundation is good no matter how you make it. But deconditioning the past, I think, is a big part of this, with all the retrograde.
So what do you mean by deconditioning the past?
Well, just that. If people have already liberated themselves from deconditioning, it's like, it's great to borrow, beg, and steal from what the traditions of life are, through your family, through your society, through your neighbors, your whatever it is. But to a certain point, it's like, I think what's being asked now is to wend your way. But deconditioning, is it your voice or not? That's the basic thing. If it is, hey, great, you've done the work, continue. But if it's not, it's partly because if it all worked, we'd still be doing it. And it's not working. And we can say, yeah, it's because of the whatever's happening in the world, but it's not just that. It's a culmination of everything. And obviously, it's a good time to realize that on a grand scale and on a personal scale, there's things that need to be redone. And that's what I mean by deconditioning. Saturn, Capricorn, is conditioned and deconditioning. And especially if Pluto's involved, which it is.
Well, and when I think it's important that sometimes people forget that they are their foundation. It's not what happens externally to them that is the foundation of their life. They are the foundation of their life. And being asked, I think that there's a lot of fear on the planet right now. And I don't know about about the two of you, but I feel it. Every time I go out of my house and I go somewhere and I come home and I'm tired, which is leading to what we see are a lot of highly reactive responses to what seems to be fairly straightforward stimuli. Does that make any sense? Like,
Sure.
We've got in Canada, we've got a lot of convoys going on. A lot of anti-vaxxers are out protesting, and then the pro-vaxxers are out protesting, and it's starting, and it's like all of a sudden, it's back to that whole need to be right versus wrong, and anyways, it's just getting to be a bit of a muddle. This is maybe a polite way to put it. So I'm hoping that with these two conjunctions, we get some clarity, and that people can find a way to, instead of trying to control their exterior environment, find a way to, as you were talking about it, I guess that's part of deconditioning the past is recognizing you can't control your exterior reality.
Right. Very good. Okay. It all ties in. I like it.
Finally, we got there, right?
Yeah. Well, it is work, right? I mean, we're talking about Capricorn. You know, Capricorn is the sea goat that went from the bottom of the sea up to the top of the mountain. It surely didn't fly, didn't have wings, not in that mythology. Yeah.
Well,
Laura?
and too, though, I think, that structure, foundations, that's all good, right? It's just there's the difference between being stuck versus being stable, right? The stuckness of Capricorn that's what we have to break up, right? But stability and structure and boundaries, those are all healthy, right? Those are needed. If we didn't have structure, we wouldn't be erect as a species, right?
Well, there's all kinds of structure. I mean, there's I was reading though a lot about walls. Walls have their purpose, right? They keep the puppy dog in the yard, perhaps. They won't keep a cat in the yard, but they'll keep a dog in the yard, right? And I don't know about chickens. There was a lot of chickens here in Hawaii. But in fact, we had a duck, a Muscovy duck that obviously flew here, finally found a new home. They can be pretty aggressive, those male Drake Muscovy ducks. Yeah. So anyway, boundaries. It's back to the internal. Let's go to the internal. Let's go with where it's at in each of our lives. Laura, do you want to, or Lesley?
Well, the first one or the second one?
Or both.
Well, the whole thing, because for me, it's in one house going into the next house. But you could explain that. Was it going from one house to the next? Because it is 16 degrees Capricorn till 0 degrees, but then it's a little before and a little after because of the 1-2 degree orb.
Yeah, I mean, it does actually follow the same. They both are in the same house for me.
Me
Yeah,
too.
they're both in my second house.
Yeah. They're both in
so-
my fourth. And Lesley, where are they in yours?
Well, as I mentioned before, the first one's conjunct my sixth house cusp, and the other conjunction is conjunct my natal Mercury in my
Which
sixth
is?
house. Both.
So
it's all in my
it's
sixth house.
just at your sixth house going into your sixth house. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like mine's all in the fourth and yours is in the second.
The second, so the Capricorn one is within a degree of exact opposition to my Venus.
Oh yes.
So it's all in our in the lower hemisphere. It's all in our personal kind of our self houses. It's not in the
subjective.
upper.
Yeah.
So it's very
Well, that's part of that inner experience,
Yeah,
right?
it
It's
is an
the,
inner
it's the
experience.
bottom
No
half
wonder
of
we
the chart.
called it what we did then.
Yeah, well, in so many ways.
Tough luck for the other people.
Intuitively, it's very good, and that's really, again, doesn't that get back to Pisces? It's like, yeah, let's use these other tools. Let's not get so, A to B oriented, linear. Anyway, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I believe we're being prompted for the break.
You're kidding. We've babbled that long? Well, thank you very much. This is Planet Buzz with Talk Cosmos, or vice versa. It's February 6th, and we're talking about this amazing conjunction between Venus and Mars occurring as we speak for the next 5 weeks. And we'll be right back. Thank you so much. Hello? Can you hear? Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, I was
Oh, you can hear
muted,
me?
but I just unmuted
Okay,
myself.
okay, very good. Well, welcome back, everybody. And today is February 6th. And as we talk about these two nodal rulers, Venus is the ruler of our new North Node in Taurus, and Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, along with the modern ruler, Pluto. And of course, they're all in Capricorn. The ruler happens to, which is traditions, which is rules, regulations, fears, authority, mastery, a whole abundance of life that we've been dealing with for a long time here. And really helping us guide, I think, our new, how we're going to work with this new world that we're all experiencing, building our foundation, as both of you clearly and beautifully said earlier. So these rulers are connected. You know, there's great mythology about the harmony that their child produced, and it's best, you know, when they were together. They had other things, but this was one of the stronger points. So, you know, it's a matter, I remember during our talk, it was like, are we walking our talk? And because it is action and our values. So if perhaps that's a way to introduce the new thought, if you have some ideas.
Well, yeah, I think walking our talk, and that it also, with rulership, gets very tied to the lunar nodes, right? That becomes a big part of this, even though it's not an aspect to them. It is the archetypal relationship, right? Venus governs Taurus and Libra, so we have the North Node in Taurus right now of the moon, and the old Mars being the old ruler of Scorpio, governing the South Node of the moon. And so, in addition to walking our talk, it's also this at collectively as a humanity, you know, what are we aspiring towards in terms of that Taurian North Node, and the values as a global society that we are walking our talk with or not, and how, where's the conflict with that? Where's the tension with that? I think we're seeing that pop up with the Olympics and the politics of China, right? And so that's part of this as well.
You know,
and that we maintain that with the, with the nodes and that, go ahead.
I think
well, you know, go ahead.
I think it's important to note that when these conjunctions take place both times, the moon is in a fire sign. And sometimes when we talk about the nodes and we talk about how they're connected to a major, because Venus and Mars are beginning, it's interesting that they're beginning this new cycle twice in the space of essentially 2 weeks.
Yes.
And there's two, and they represent the two different paths you could take. And cling to the past, or are you going to prepare your structure for the future? So for the first conjunction, the moon's in Leo, and for the second, the moon is in the very last degree of Aries. And so in a way, there's an invitation there to really, because fire is always active, and it's important to think about where the moon is. At least it seems to me.
Well,
brain is it's
no,
Sue, you
Lesley,
showed me that
it's
spiral
great.
in the beginning, and my brain is spiraling a lot.
Lesley, it's great. We just jump in and out. Yeah, it's good. I love this reminder that there is this passion involved. You're so right. It's not just all cerebral or even material, like putting pieces together in a puzzle. Yeah, it's that inspiration. That's beautiful. I also
Thank you for saying that. You said what I was trying to say. So
okay, very good. Well, that's where we can collaborate. Yeah, you know, I was thinking it's finances too, because we were kind of talking about what Venus is. You know, it's resources, it's finances, it's value, it's beauty. It shares two signs that it rules. And I was just reading Forbes. I try to get, I have 100, well, I have about 10 different newsletters, but I chose 30 and below, thinking maybe young people have something to say here. And I don't know really if it's 30, 30-year-olds or what, but it is enlightening. And there's CIOs, Chief Information Operations, I think that's what it is, at any rate, are changing. They no longer have to have engineers. It's this collaboration. That's what I'm getting down to. They're people that can they collaborate, and they're people that are of greater diversity, meaning, of course, the diversity would be anything from the obvious, what has been, so that would be women and people of various ethnicities and racial descriptions and gender descriptions and everything. So the broad spectrum, right? So you had said something that, because this is exchanging gifts too. I think you were touching on the idea of, maybe it was Laura, what we offer, as far as resources. So that was my feedback.
Well,
Yeah.
I think maybe with that, so, as it transitions, they track each other for these many weeks. What are the resources that we're going to take forward, right? So we're laying the foundation, we're setting the stepping stones. Some of that is what resources are we going to bring with us when the conjunction's in Aquarius, and we get to be really inventive and think outside the box in our now that we have these resources, maybe it's a way of using them in a totally new way. It's the same resources, but we're being really innovative in how we allocate them, or what we spend our money on, or what we don't spend our money on, in a more revolutionary way, which is that Aquarian energy. And things that we thought were important to us aren't, or things that we didn't value, we suddenly do.
And
Well,
Lesley, go ahead.
Well, I think it's really interesting. When we were talking about it, we realized that the conjunction in Aquarius is at 0 degrees 1 minute. You couldn't get more birthing initiation energy if you tried. And so it's interesting with the other conjunction taking place in Capricorn in the middle of the sign. Perhaps you could interpolate that you've got some time to take action, because of course Mars is the planet that initiates the first conjunction, because Venus hasn't picked up speed after it was retrograde, and then it's Venus that brings them together. So action is taken, and then we find ourselves with a brand new beginning. And interestingly enough, I think it's important to point out that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything.
Absolutely.
And feel like everything's in its right place. You just need to trust your, trust your feeling.
I really,
where you want to go.
I love this. I think we can't. It's an injustice almost to ourselves, because if we're birthing, this is not like 2019. This is 2022. We are experiencing 2 years of a pandemic that's disrupted everything for whatever reason. That's life today. However we find our resistance, we're accepting it, right? And so we're all recalibrating total brand new systems. And if we haven't, somebody near and dear to us is. So it's like there's this domino effect. And so we've got to begin fresh. And so these two are holding, thankfully Capricorn every sign has wonderful virtues and has a shadow side. It's par for the course. And the wonderful side is that they're looking for ways, as you brought up earlier in the conversation, how do we set something of some stability in our life? How are we going to have something that we can rest on to kind of work on later? But we don't need to know what it is, because if we do, we're discrediting, I think, the other side of it, and that's Pisces. Pisces, it needs to come in as part of that spiritual synchronicity, of spirality. Spirality is almost sounds like spirulina. Hey, let's talk about where it is in our life. We may not have too much time. It's in my 4th house, And I realized, besides my poetry and all that, I'm changing my food and I'm exercising because I have a family cholesterol thing. And the doc said, well, it's either statins. And I said, well, can I have some time? Well, if I can lose some weight and get exercise. And of course, any activity would be activity because this is a couch potato we're talking about. And I don't want to be mashed potatoes. It wasn't a good dance ever anyway. So that's really times when I was a little kid. How do you do the mashed potato? You know, we were like having a sleepover and everybody get their little towels and rub their feet. And I thought, this is kind of stupid. Sorry, folks.
Oh, that's what that was. No.
Yeah, that was a mashed potato. I thought, nah, not for me.
Oh, I mean, I heard the song. I just didn't really know what the dance was, to be honest.
Oh, it was. Yeah, you put your foot front forward and you kind of go back and forth, you know, on your toe. And then you take a towel
I like the twist a lot better, but I'm really aging myself. So,
that was young too.
So for me, there seems to be, it's carrying on a theme, like, working through, because for me, the sixth house is about health. It's about routine, having conversations with myself about perhaps it's time that I changed my routines, because I have an inner adolescent that just doesn't like rules of any kind. And I should say I have 5 planets in Aquarius, so people will understand why that is. And I've been having chats with her, trying to get her to understand that it is, this is very much a sixth house thing, that it is a healthy, productive, and happy thing to have routine instead of always going, well, I don't have to do anything I don't really want to do.
I'm in your camp. Me too. I'm
so
doing, well said.
And so there's healing going on, because of course the 6th is opposite the 12th, and so here's an opportunity, to do some more exploration, to change some of, and the moon rules my 12th house. So again, you were talking about deconditioning the past. It really makes sense, and I'm actually kind of really excited about this. Well, all parts of me except maybe my inner adolescent. She's still not excited about it, but
well, very good. Thank you, Lesley. And you've spoken more broadly too with areas for myself. Laura?
Yeah, well, as I said, so both of them will take place in my second. I don't actually think we've said the dates of the conjunction, so that people have them.
I said it was February 16th, and then it'll also be, which is about noon on the East Coast, and then it is March 6th.
Yeah, so just so we've got that.
The first one coincides with the full moon, and I do have the exact times. You're right, and I didn't give them exactly.
But, so for being with it in my second house, I can't sort of separate it from the fact that I have a 15-degree Cancer Venus. So it doesn't operate. I won't experience it independent from that opposition, or at least the first one. And so it has a lot to do then with it's in the house of values, and then it's opposed my values, right? So it's like multi-layered of looking at what's most important to me and what do I want to take forward, and what to let go of. What have I been entrenched in that Capricorn energy that it's like, I said I valued it, so I'm going to be super stubborn as a South Node in Taurus person and like, no, I still value it. I'm not going to move.
Yeah.
And letting go of that, because it doesn't make room for the new of the Aquarian conjunction that then is still in the second, but then a little 2 degree orb of my Saturn, right? So which is 3 degrees Leo.
Wow.
So then it is also like, what am I going to be accountable for with these new things that I say I value, and maintain, and being called out to be accountable for, okay, you value that now, what are you going to do about it? And again, this walking your talk, right? That Saturn, that combination, I think, of the Saturn and Mars of accountability with the actions that I'm taking.
all very important Capricorn words. And really, I have to remember going into Aquarius, which is an air sign. So, moving from earth to air is not by itself an easy thing, like an alchemy. It's because one is grounded and has form, and the other is like floating around and doesn't get into earth very easily. I mean, they don't, just as elements. But for me, too, that is right at my yod, which connects my Saturn and my Venus, along with Uranus, the whole 9 yards, and an Aquarius. So it's I think adjustments are huge for everybody. So for all our listeners, if you have anything in the cardinal signs, that's Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, and there's a 5 degrees spread to be safe, but there's always huger, larger. But it is already at the middle point of Capricorn, all the way to the first, to the 0 degrees, and into, I think, about 3 degrees or something. They actually linger in 2-degree orbs. What is it, Lesley?
Oh, just listening.
No, you were making, did I say something, or no? You were thinking?
Yeah, I mean,
I was just thinking. I was thinking about my chart. I wasn't thinking about what you were saying.
Yeah. Sorry. I know. No, we have to be kind to ourselves, kind to our charts, right? Kind to us.
Yeah, well, and
I
I
was
think one of the
thinking about the
things.
adjustment part.
Oh.
Because I forgot it was that is going to be quincunx my natal Uranus, just what I really need.
Well, the good thing about Capricorn is, too, it's time oriented. I mean, the polarity Cancer, which I strongly too have been thinking, like, I can do it my way and my time. But Capricorn, on the other hand, says, you should have been ready 10 days ago. Like, time's up. You can be premature on this, and so, but there's a usage to that, because you have to, like you were saying too, Laura, you have to, like, strip away somewhat of the essentials to see what's the true priorities here. I know I've been collecting all kinds of classes and new habits that I'm trying to build, and it's like, holy mackerel. It's my own kaleidoscope. It'll but the good news is that, you kind of have to reach back and go, okay, so there does have to be, like you're saying, Lesley, a little bit of it.
Well, it's always interesting, because we face this challenge every month when we talk about planetary energies, to remind ourselves that it's all part of a flow, it's all part of a process, and that these are jumping off points for all of us, to begin the process. It's not the sole determinant of the process.
Yeah, it is. It is a stepping stone. It's true. And I was thinking, yes, ours is, very personal. And then I keep looking at my notes about book banning. Now, would that be part of this, you think, where there's values that are being on a
Well, it really connects to what you were
scale?
talking about, deconditioning the past. And also, I think we hadn't really talked about this, but I think it has to do with not wanting to deal with reality.
Yes, denial.
Right?
Denial of the, I mean, the book banning that's happening in the US is wanting to deny the past.
Yeah. And
Not
really,
wanting to
that
look
gets
at it.
back to, in this country, we have Neptune opposing Neptune for quite a long time. They have a 166-year orbit. So it's like, ours is 22 Virgo, and this is 22, 23 Pisces. So it's a lot of denial. Yeah. So it's really more of the sky is collaborating and putting down its.
Well, and it'll be interesting with the second conjunction, we get the Jupiter Sun conjunction in Pisces the same day.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I know we didn't show any charts this time.
And that'll also be at 15. So, like, we get at the middle of the sign, right? Like we have with the first conjunction, that's the middle of Capricorn. But I think that will be part of this energy, even though they're not an aspect to each other, because they're sort of,
but it's an aspect to the from my point of view, it's in aspect to the previous conjunction. So in other words, it's carrying along some of that
Yeah.
energy on a more subtle frequency.
Yeah. And so as we're moving into that, being inventive, but the potential for delusion is going to be really high.
Well, I think it is that reference point. If we take Capricorn and we say, what is reality that we see, whether we like it or not, that's part of it. And therefore we can tell, because illusion and delusion are pretty close, I mean, there's all kinds of ideas that, like Einstein said, imagination is first. And we know that. I mean, Musk and all his guys wouldn't be happening with whether it's right or wrong, whatever they're doing, without, imagining.
Right. So yeah, it can also be really dreamy and just downloading, right? And then trusting that even if you can't make sense of why you feel like you have to act in a certain way, perhaps there's some other guidance you're getting. It's not that concretized energy of Capricorn. You just know. It's that tacit knowing. It's just downloaded information of, now I need to do this. And if you tried to parse it out rationally, you probably wouldn't be able to or won't be able to. But it may potential, the highest potential of that conjunction, like being coinciding with the other conjunction, is that ability to just have the gods conspire in our favor. The universe does want the best for us. Yeah. And being able to take advantage of that time, like a really powerful time to do meditation or however that is for you, whether it's walking meditation or, mindfulness or breath work, whatever is gardening, your if you meditation, painting for some people, right? That gets you in the zone, that answers coming through and making note of that and saying, okay, that's really where I'm feeling guided. And by whomever is your source, and paying attention to that.
Yeah, that's important to recognize. I think it's something I feel like Jupiter and Neptune are already doing today. The notion that just allowing that free-form flow, right? And then when those two planets conjunct in Aquarius, it's that there is going to be a drive to create something new. But again, it's so new, that energy is so new, and it's beautiful because it's like a baby being born. So there's so much potential there. And and yet the moon is at 29 degrees of Aries. So, this is why astrology is such a powerful language, because it gives you so much insight. And in an hour, we can never, ever talk about all the potential that exists in the things we're talking about.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lesley. And thank you, Laura, because we are just about closing. And I'm thinking with this, the new tools that Pisces brings in, because there's music. Music is the language of Pisces, along with Taurus, actually, and also film. And films are these storylines that are graphically brought to life that just show these incredible vistas of dimension in every way. Our brain doesn't even know the difference between truth and what it is. I mean, what's real and what's not real when it sees film. It's researched. So in other words, I think you're right. If we open ourselves like links in a chain with these days that are ensuing from as of now or tomorrow, today's the 6th, it starts the 7th at conjunction 2 degrees, leading up to the 16th, 10 days from now. And then, because I know Lesley and I have a big thing on the 15th. It's happy birthday for you, Lesley. And it's going to be an LLC for me. So there are all kinds of things underneath happening, coming up. And it's vibrationally with all this. It's true. It's big. It's going forward. And next week we have Cosmic Collaboration, another panel. We have 4 people on there, 2 new people. And I just so thank all our listeners. I'm going to start up where we have a question every week and people can go online and answer it. And then we'll have a winner and we'll do something with the winner. Or they'll do something with us and join us in a conversation, or else we'll do a reading or something. So it's a